Everybody's favorite time. Are people going to show up? And I know I say that every single time, but today is real because today is Valentine's Day. So are people actually going to show up? That is the question. Because I don't know. I'm not sure. So right now, it has a 30-second delay. So right now, we got nobody. We got one person, Gene Queen, in the house, coming from Houston, Texas. Very good. So who knows? Who knows if people will come tonight on Valentine's Day or if people are out enjoying their lives? We don't know. But in either event, either way, we are here. We made it. So I appreciate everybody hanging in here. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. People are starting to flow into the chat. So, okay, tonight's going to be a tough crowd because I imagine there's a lot of people out. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to get in early, and that way we can get everything answered. We got someone from Lantana that's just up the street. We got someone from Scotland. Way to go. Where is everybody from? That's what I want to know. So far, the furthest away is Scotland. That's where Hanley is from. And if you watch the very first episode of the Reseller Greatness podcast, it was with Hanley. I think that one is one of my favorites. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. Let's talk about it. Let's answer it. So after we find out where everyone is from, how is 2024 going for everybody? Because we're about 6 weeks in, and 6 weeks ago, everyone was very, very excited. There was a lot of hoorah. We were really getting after it. We had our goals. And I think a lot of that has subsided and disappeared by now. So 6 weeks in, how are we doing? Are we still chasing our goals? Are we still on target? Have we fallen behind? Have we gone back to regular old stuff without kind of that, incentive or inspiration? Is it gone? How's 2024 going for you guys 1 month in? All right. First question in the chat from Aaron. I appreciate it. First question. Thank you. How do you ship your hats? So I ship my hats in boxes, and that is very important because people that buy hats, especially collectors, are very particular about how the hats are shipped. So I ship them in boxes. So I use two boxes. One I get for free with my subscriber discount, and we've talked about that before. I will put that in the chat. And if you have an eBay store, you do get some sort of subscriber discount. It depends on what size eBay store you have, the amount that they give you for the coupon. So for me on the Anchor store, I get $150 eBay coupon, or I can go onto eBay and buy some eBay branded shipping supplies, boxes, stickers, tapes, whatever you want to buy. So with my $150 coupon, I always buy the box that's 8x6x3, and I put the dad hats in there. That's like your polo hats, the low profile ones, the strap back ones. I put the dad hats in the 8x6x3, which I get for free with my eBay shipping or my eBay subscriber discount coupon. And even if you have a smaller store, you'll get a $25 coupon, whatever they give you. And then for these types of hats that have structure, the high dome, I ship these in an 8x8x8 box. And I think we usually order those on Uline. So I ship all hats in a box. Dad hats 8x6x3. The ones that have structure, those go in an 8x8x8. Thank you very much. Everyone is filing in. Appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate you guys hanging out here Valentine's Day with us. Movie Going says Bay Area, California. Do you have any bolos for men's dress shirts? Absolutely. There's great ones. So if you haven't watched the two bolo videos that I did, one has 500 items. The other one has between 400 and 500. All from memory, not rehearsed, not written down. But there are great bolos when it does come to button-up shirts. Taylor Stitch makes great stuff. You have Eaton. A great one is Robert Graham limited edition, not regular Robert Graham. Robert Graham limited edition. Those ones sell very well for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Eaton again is a good brand. Robert Graham, Taylor Stitch. You also have Turnbull and Asser. That is a good one. And that's four for you real quick. If anyone else has any more dress shirt or button-up shirt bolos, put that into the chat. But those are kind of the easiest ones to find out there. Oh, Green Acres, Florida, that's right up the street too. Very good. Lake Worth, right up the street. South Florida representing, man. Secondhand Maple, Canada Goose Trapper Hat, Bolo or Nolo, asking for a friend. So we have to be careful when we're listing these trapper hats, specifically for Canada Goose. Number one, there is a lot of fake Canada Goose, and it's very easy to spot. Usually the stitching on that circle logo, the red is going to be all connected, and it's going to have a bunch of little red maple leaves that will also be all connected. So that is a um, very good indication that it is fake. They do make a lot of fake Canada Goose. The second thing we have to be careful of when we're doing the trapper hats, the ones with the flaps, the fur ones, we have to be careful not to include the word bomber in the title. Hats specifically. Bomber jackets, this does not apply to. Hats. We have to be very careful about using the keyword bomber when it comes to hats, because there is a brand called the Mad Bomber, and they make those trapper hats. They specialize in doing that. And for whatever reason, they feel like that they own the word bomber in combination with any hat listing on eBay. So if it is a legit Canada Goose trapper hat, you could list it. Do not use the word bomber as a keyword because they will take it down. So Mad Bomber, those trapper hats, those do well. I showed a True Religion bomber hat on one of the calls for an exercise that we did based on price and sell through. Those sell great for a few $100s, but be careful about using the word bomber specifically when we're talking about those trapper hats. Again, you can use bomber for anything else, but bomber and hat, for whatever reason, the Mad Bomber Hat Company feels like they own that, and they are going to protect their brand accordingly. Caitlin says, so far she's on track to meet her goals, up 56% since the beginning of the year. That is a beautiful thing. Thank you very much. Side Hustle Chick, shout out to her. I know she's in the group. She posts accountability every single day. Excellent. Very good. Lots of questions coming in. I appreciate it. What's your favorite promotion if you could only pick one? I mean, I don't know. I think all of them can be used well in strategy. If you are depending on them to sell your items as part of your business policy or your standard operating procedure, I think that that's the wrong way to go when we're looking at promotions. If you are using them for strategy to entice the buyer to, make the price better, make the listing more enticing on an aged inventory markdown system, I think that it's much better there. I think that I guess if I had to pick one and they were going to eliminate all the other ones, I think it would be coupon, because they do display that big bright verbiage inside of search right next to your listing that does say 20% off coupon, and it is very, very visible right at the top of the listing where it says 20% coupon with this code. So I think if we were like on a desert island and I can only pick one, I think I would go with the coupon, because the order discount, volume price discount, markdown promotion would probably be second place for me. But just the coupon, I think, is the most bang for the buck if I only had to pick one. Cynthia says, really scared to start eBay because it seems like only the big sellers are owning it. I think that would be the case for every single platform, every single industry. And that doesn't mean that there's no room for a brand new person or somebody that's smaller. So I think that smaller stores, especially going forward, with the way that eBay is trending, you could be much more curated and you could be much more individualized on what you're doing and what you're doing to your listings, where a larger store or more of a bulk model has to have much more of a blanket policy when it comes to everything. So as we talked about a couple months ago in the podcast that I have on the thumbnail called Promoted Listing Problem, If you have a very large store, it's very difficult to do onesie twosies. If it's this, we do that. If it's that, we do this. It's very difficult to do that. So having, a one size fits all or a blanket policy concerning promoted listings or concerning markdown or concerning anything, it has to be blanket, because if you're listing 100 a day, 200 a day, to go back in and onesie twosie everything else, like that's a full-time job in itself. But if you're listing 10 great items, 20 great items, then you can do the onesie twosies, and then you can say, okay, this particular item, like the True Religion Trapper hat, that has over a 100% sell through, sells for a great price. Do I need to run promoted listings? Do I need to apply a coupon on this? Do I need to accept a quote unquote lowball offer because I have confidence in this item due to the data that this item will sell through at a great price? So if that is the case, a larger store, it's just a very broad brush. A smaller store, you can make much more, like I said, individualized decisions. And I think that swiftness and that quickness and being able to pivot very quickly, I think is an asset and an advantage to a smaller store. So I would not be turned off. I would not be turned away just because someone is doing more than you, selling more than you, because ultimately at the end of the day, just because someone is doing more or selling more doesn't mean they're even making any profit. So profit at the end of the day wins as long as you concentrate and focus on running a profitable business straight from the jump. It doesn't matter if you have 10 items or 10,000 items. The marketplace is big enough for everybody. So the title of this call today is the single only reason why resellers fail. And I'm going to give you the reason towards the end of the call, but I want to know from you guys, if you could pick one reason why resellers fail, why is that? Why, one reason why resellers fail? Bill says, I have some bad customers that did bad returns, and now I have 5 defects against my account out of 150 transactions, and my account level is about to go poor. So if you have a buyer that has misused returns, like you said, they did bad returns. If they have misused returns, then eBay gives you the ability to appeal those defects. And we have a great video in the group by Michelle, and Michelle is a moderator here tonight. So thank you, Michelle. Everyone thank Michelle. Give Michelle a shout out. We have a great video in there on how to appeal the defects, and that is very, very important. And I also did a call on December 12th, 12/12, inside of the morning call section titled Seller Protections. And it is very, very important that we all learn our seller protections. And if we have our seller protections and we have that, the proof, we know the rules of the game if we want to win, then we have grounds to appeal the defect. Can you call eBay and have them remove the defect? No, you can't do it. But if you report the buyer and you do it properly and you use the proper channels, absolutely you can get those defects removed if they are covered under seller protection. So I guess first and foremost, figure out why you have the defects, snip it right now so those don't continue. And if they are a true misuse of returns, if they are against seller protection and buyer protection, be sure to report them, use the proper channels, get those defects removed. Gene Queen says, what did you and Miss Tech and Sports do today? I know you aren't big on holidays, but surely you did something for the star player. So she asked jokingly today, she said, where are you going to take me tonight for Valentine's Day? And I said, right to the YouTube chat, because she is the moderator. So right here, happy Valentine's Day. You guys are spending it with my wife and I. My wife is in the chat. So if you see Tech and Sports do any moderation, that is her. That is not me. So take it up with her. Don't take it up with me. But I told her I was going to take her on a hot date to the YouTube chat. And here we are, man of my word. Auctioning items on eBay, are they a thing of the past? It depends. If you are auctioning a common everyday item that is saturated and doesn't have much demand, you're not going to find a lot of success with it. If you are auctioning something that is desirable, that is rare, that is collectible, then you can find some success. So the only times that I did run an auction is when I had something rare, desirable, or collectible. I like to run a lot of auctions, usually like on my champion reverse weaves. And based on the color, you can get a couple people fighting over them and you can drive up the price. Or if it's one of the military ones, Marine Corps, Navy, Coast Guard, New York Athletic Club, you could drive up the price. Uh, I have. I got a pair today of champion New York Athletic Club pants, and I had the matching hoodie and I sold it to Full Court. I sold it to Corby, who I also did a video with a couple months ago, and the title is the best rap tee haul ever. I sold him the champion reverse weave New York Athletic Club hoodie for a great price because he was going up to New York because his daughter was in the Macy's Day Parade. And if you go on eBay and you type in vintage champion NYAC reverse weave sweater, they go for several hundreds of dollars. So I sold it today to Corby for a great price. And then I received this item today and it absolutely broke my heart. And I know Jean Queen is in the chat. She loves vintage. I received the matching pair of New York Athletic Club pants, reverse weave. There's the New York Athletic Club, reverse weave, but somebody put bleach all over them. What are we doing here? So these pants are worth like a couple $100, but like with the bleach, what are we doing here? Absolutely broke my heart. So for the example of a vintage champion New York Athletic Club reverse weave hoodie, that is a good candidate for an auction because there's a lot of people that collect New York Athletic Club. There's a lot of people that collect champion, a lot of people that collect reverse weave. So that would be a good candidate. If you're going to list a Nike dry fit shirt on auction, not a good candidate. So that's how I look at auctions. Getting returns on women's jeans is affecting my traffic and sales. So there is two types of returns. One of them is buyer's remorse. One of them is item not as described. Buyer's remorse reasons do not impact your account in any way, shape, or form. Buyer's remorse reasons are wrong size, doesn't fit, found a better price, changed mine, didn't like. Those are buyer's remorse. No impact, no harm, no foul. And then you have your item not as described returns, such as item not as described, arrived broken, missing parts or pieces, arrived damaged, not as pictured. Those ones, or counterfeit. Those ones are item not as described. Item not as described do affect your account. Item not as described will and can affect your traffic, especially if you get deemed in the very high section, because then you can also be assessed up to a 6% penalty on final value fees. So if you are selling items and you are telling eBay that, hey, these items are coming back for return due to item not as described, AKA my fault, then you're right. eBay is going to pull back that traffic until you can regain the confidence of completing a successful sale, of having a happy customer, they leaving positive feedback, and them not opening up a return due to item not as described. So remember, there's two. You can get as many buyer's remorse returns as you want, no impact. The item not as described is what we have to be careful for. Caitlin says, not a question, but her light bulb finally went on after watching one of the early recorded calls. That's very good. And it's very weird because like everything that I've talked about on YouTube, I've been saying the same thing since the original podcast in 2016. It's the same. If you listen to that podcast, you could listen to that one and you could log off because like the message has not changed. The philosophy has not changed. The theories have not changed. Well, even though it's been the same thing for almost 10 years, like Mandy the other day in the group, the light bulb finally went off on something that I have been saying a lot. Just I happened to say it in a different way, or she happened to ask a question which prompted the same answer in a different way. And I think that the answers come when people are ready to accept them. And people are at different states of their journey. People are at different states of their life. People are in different states of their business. And I think things hit them differently depending on where they are at currently at the time. So in the beginning of the journey, I might say something and it might not hit until you get there, until you are ready to accept it. And I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm not the boss of anybody. You guys could do whatever you want to do, but it will eventually hit you. And when it does hit you, that's the time, that's when you are ready to accept it. I'm not here to convince anybody. You guys could do whatever you want, however you want, but eventually, somehow, someday, it will hit, and that's when the light bulb will go off. Bill says, what's best number percent we should be using for promoted listings? So that is an unanswerable question. The technical answer is as close to zero as possible, because what you are doing is paying eBay a portion of the sales to give you better placement that will result in a buyer purchasing the item. Now, if you are purchasing items that do not need promoted listings due to their desirability, due to the sell-through, due to them not being saturated, that is the best percentage. Or you could be purchasing items that might need 75% promoted listings because they are that saturated. So there is no answer for what is the best promoted listing. The answer is we should try to be looking for items where we don't need to have a high promoted listings rate. And that's going to be different for everyone. It's going to be different for every single category. So if you have a small pony polo shirt that's size small pony size small, you might need to promote that thing 20, 25% to get it sold. Who knows? But if you have a postcard for, Sarasota Beach, Florida with some palm trees on it, you can promote that 100%, but it doesn't matter until that particular person comes along and is looking for a postcard from Sarasota, and how many other ones are out there. So like that particular item never needs promotion because the person that is looking for it will eventually find it. You're going to be the only choice, and they have no other option but to buy it. So the competition and the saturation of the market is going to determine what promoted listing is best for you. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. We are on a roll. We are doing good. Cynthia says they have to authenticate some Louboutin sneakers because they didn't come with a box. Can you recommend a way to do this? So for me personally, I haven't used any of the apps, but I have seen people use an app called the Legit app. I have never used it, but I just have seen people use it. You can also use the Check app. And we use that for the store. I'm not sure if they do Louboutins, but they do Nikes and stuff like that. We use that app for the store, Check, and they get back pretty quickly. So either try the Legit app or try Check. And if anyone else has any other legit authentication apps, put those into the chat. It would be greatly appreciated. But also keep in mind and remember that a third party independent opinion of whether or not they're authentic isn't the end all be all. If the brand owner or if eBay decides they are not authentic and that is their opinion, your third party independent verification means absolutely nothing. So, and that's in the news now. Like you have Chanel, suing these big time companies. You have, Nike litigating with StockX because there is question whether or not a independent third party can actually verify the authenticity of an item. And at the end of the day, it's ultimately up to the brand owner to decide if something is real and something is not. So, and it's very easy to prove. So for Nike, they just have to send in 1,000 pairs of shoes with one fake, and StockX has to be right 100% of the time. If they're wrong one time, then in a court of law or in Nike's opinion, how can you say that you are an authenticator of shoes? You can't, because you were wrong. You're not 100%. You are not the manufacturer. You have no idea. You are using your best guess. So it's very easy to kind of trick the authenticators on that scale and kind of delegitimize, what they say they can do. So the independent third party is great, but it is not the end all be all. The end all be all is when you send them out to eBay authentication and whether they agree or not. Pepe says, if you had to make as much money as possible with your eBay store in the next month or two, what would you do? Would you stop listing completely and put your whole store on sale? If I had to make as much money as possible in the next 1 or 2 months, I would get off eBay and I would go find a job in the real world. So we need to understand when we are assessing items on eBay, we are looking at them active versus solds. What is solds? Solds is based on 90-day sell-through. So best case scenario, we find an item that has a 100% sell-through within 90 days, and we are voluntarily listing an item today with the expectation that we will see our money back and a profit within 90 days. That's what we are saying, whether we know it or not. When we are looking at actives and we are looking at solds, solds are telling us this item theoretically is going to sell within 90 days. We are voluntarily listing items today and saying, don't pay me for the next 90 days. That's what we're saying. So if you need money this month, if you need money in the next 2 months, eBay is not the answer, unfortunately. Maybe go drive Uber, maybe go get a job doing something else. But if you need money right now, eBay is not the answer. Sell all of your items to somebody else and let them wait the 3, 4, 5 months that it's going to take. Because we are voluntarily listing items that theoretically are going to sell in 90 days if they have a 100% sell through. If they have a 50% sell through, we are voluntarily listing items today and expecting them to sell in 180 days, which is 6 months. So if you're trying to make money this month, I don't know if eBay is the way to go. Norma says, I would like to hear your opinion about the suggested price eBay includes in the listings pricing section. So very good. In my experience and many other experience, that price is incorrect and that price is usually very low. And the way that you could test this is you look at their suggested price, you go right to eBay and you perform your own search. And then from there, you decide who is right, who is wrong. So would I use that for my business? The answer is no. Can you use it? You could do whatever you please, but it's very easy to check. It's very easy to, make sure it's legitimate. You see what they're saying, you go to eBay and you see what the real data says, and then you can make your decision from there. Oh, Daniel has a good selling dress shirt. Yeah, Keaton is very good. That's a good one. Absolutely. Ryan says Marlin should have never changed the logo. That's right. This is a good one right here. I like this one as well. William says 2024 is going okay. Droopy says, just discovered, appreciate the video. I appreciate you hanging in and joining us. Thank you. Do I know anyone getting sued for selling an abundance of a single item? Like not personally, but I have seen people, they've sent me messages on Instagram, and I've seen this 2 or 3 times. I've seen people who have, I guess, too many or too much brand new tags Ralph Lauren stuff. And they have received a cease and desist from Ralph Lauren, asking them who is their supplier, and they want them to turn over all of the proceeds from the sales of selling the brand new tag Ralph Lauren stuff. So I have seen that 2 or 3 times from 2 or 3 different people. What happens after that? I don't know. They basically say, what do I do? And I basically say, you're screwed. That's what I basically say, because I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give you legal advice. But I say, I don't know. It sounds like you're in big trouble. You should probably consult a lawyer. Like that's my response. So I have seen that 2 or 3 times from Ralph Lauren, but also these stores had hundreds and hundreds of only brand new Ralph Lauren items. So they are scouring the internet and they are kind of looking for people that do have hundreds and hundreds of items. I also did see a lawsuit before of a lady listed a shirt with a cat on it, and the cat was drawn by some online artist or something, and that person had their own print on demand store, and they sent them a lawsuit because they were selling that shirt with a cat on it, not through the artist print on demand website. I think they were wanting like a couple $1,000 for damages. I don't know what happened with that, but like those are the only 2 instances where I remember where people were getting threatened with a lawsuit. You just got to be careful. You got to keep your ear to the streets. You got to see where the virals are. You got to see where Brands are being super protective. And whenever I hear anything like that, for me personally, I'm out. You guys can keep listing it. You guys can keep doing it. You guys are free to run your business however you see fit. But if I see other people getting hemmed up or getting veros or getting in trouble, I'm out. Totally out. So the guess is on the single only reason why resellers fail. We have not consistent, no knowledge, disorganization, inconsistent, lack of worth ethic, lack of consistency, inconsistent sourcing, knowledge is key, problem with consistency. Those are all good guesses. Cash flow, not knowing your numbers, very good. Transaction defects. If an item leaves negative, if a buyer leaves negative feedback because the item had a defect, but I disclose the defect in my descriptions, can I call to have that feedback removed? So that is covered underneath your seller protections, and that's why it is very, very important that we do read through the seller protections and we do know what is protected. So there is a line in there that says it is against buyer protection and seller protection to leave a negative feedback on an item that was accurately described. So what you could do is you can send a message to the buyer, ask them to open up an eBay return request. Once the return request is open, you generate a label, they can send the item back. Once you issue a refund, the feedback will be removed and fall off. If they do not send the item back, the case will still close. And when the case closes, the feedback will also fall off and be gone. If there is no response with the buyer, you could call eBay, try to get someone on the phone. The best way to do this is go to your draft screen, and on the lower right-hand corner, there's a floating question mark. If you click the floating question mark, you have to talk to a robot. You just have to get them to give you the phone number or ask for a call back. Once you get somebody on the phone, you explain to them that it was accurately described. There was no communication. I offer free returns. If you offer free returns, it's much easier to get the feedback removed. What can you do to help me out? If you described it, if you photographed it, if it is in condition notes, you can find a rep that will remove it. If you can quote them the exact verbiage from seller protections, you stand a much better chance of having it removed. If they will not help you, you can go on Facebook and you can type in eBay for business. You send them a message. They have a bunch of customer service reps over there. Do the same thing. Accurately described. It's in the photos. It's in the item description. It's in the condition notes. I offer 30-day free returns. No communication from the buyer. I reached out, sent them a message, offered a return. What can you do to help me out? They will remove it. If they cannot remove it, call eBay back one more time. If they refuse to help you, you can go to the top right-hand corner of your seller hub, and there's a little button up there called Seller Help. You click on Seller Help and you can fill out the application to have it be removed. Again, if you can quote the exact seller protection line, that'll be better for you. You submit the feedback removal request and then cross your fingers after that. But for a feedback like this, where it is accurately described, if you noted in the photos, noted in the description, noted in the condition notes, and you have free returns, you can find a rep. Very good. Thank you, everybody. Coach Ultimo says he has a champion New York Athletic Club jacket and doesn't know what to do with it. What you do with it, you sell it. That's what you do. Jasmine says she's had the two worst weeks on eBay the last 2 weeks. Well, fortunately, you are not in business for 2 weeks. Fortunately, you do not have to pay all of your personal bills and all of your business bills for the entire year in the next 2 weeks. Fortunately, you have 50 more weeks in the year where you are allowed to make sales. Now, if the last 2 weeks was the only option and the only opportunity for you to make money, then you got big problems. But fortunately for you, you have 50 more weeks in the year, and those 50 more weeks, we got to make up for it. And then that's why we work on averages. Michael says, what made you choose your pricing? I noticed your store, you price things at $15.88, for example, instead of $15.99. Why do you do this? No real reason. I get that question a lot. Like it's like the magic pill or like the next thing that's going to move somebody into a mansion. There is no reason. There is no rhyme. It's just because eight is my favorite number. That's why I chose to do it. It is not unique because there's probably 10,000 stores on eBay that copy my store exactly. So like doing 1888 is not going to move you into a mansion. It's just my favorite number. And that's what I did on my very first listing. And that's what I'm going to do on my very last listing. Very good. Thank you, everybody. Great questions. I see Bill asked the same question about promoted listings. I knocked that one out. Cynthia says, are Guy Harvey caps good? You tell me. What does the comp say? What does the active say? What is your buy price? What is your sell price? What is your expected profit that you want per item? What is your expected sell through that you want per item? Every single time where we need to assess if an item is good or not good, half the room is going to say yes, half the room is going to say no. And when half the room says yes and half the room says no, then what do? We have to look on eBay and we have to see, are these selling? Yes or no? Are these selling at a good enough clip? Are they selling fast enough? What is my business model? Is my business model a 90-day sell through? Well, these items are a 1 year sell through, so they don't meet the metrics. So these items are not good for me. They're good for somebody else. They are not good for me. I want to make $15 profit per item. Guy Harvey hats sell for an average price of $12.99. I have to buy them for $5. I'm going to make $5 profit. These items are not good for me. They do not meet my metrics. So when we're talking about metrics, and that word is all over reselling now, but I was the very first one to talk about metrics. So like before I came onto YouTube, like a lot of people took a lot of liberty with their own independent ideas. But as you continue to watch these videos, you will know that there's not a lot of original thoughts in reselling. So we have to make sure that the metrics are met. Our metrics are determined by profit and sell through. If we say that we want a $20 profit and a 90-day sell through, then Guy Harvey hats are no good for you. If you say you want a $10 profit with a 6-month sell through, then Guy Harvey hats are probably great for you. So, how do we assess sell through? We look at the active, we search Guy Harvey hat. There's 10,000 available. We use left-hand navigation. We scroll down, we click sold. There's 5,000 sold. The default active and sold is default based on 90 days. So since there's 10,000 active, 5,000 sold, that is a 50% sell through in 90 days. So that would be a 100% sell through in 180 days. 180 days is 6 months. If you choose to run a business with a 6-month sell through, that's fine. No problem. You could build a beautiful business based on that. But we need to determine our metric based on profit and sell through. Now, this is a sliding scale. But what happens if I find an item that makes less than $20 profit but sells very fast? That's fine. What if I find an item that's going to make me more than $20 profit but is going to take me 7 months to sell? That's fine. Go back to the podcast that Michelle and I did with the parking lot analogy. It's me standing in the middle of the highway, says sell through city. Definitely check out the parking lot podcast right there. And that will let you know and have you learn about the sliding scale of the metric. So if our metric is X dollars in X days, that's how we assess whether or not an item is good or an item is no good. And everyone is going to have a different metric. That's why the question of, are Guy Harvey caps good? Half the room will say yes, half the room will say no. Because half the room, it fits their metric, half the room, it does not fit their metric. You need to find out what your metric is and build the business around that. Research products that fit your metric, go out and find those, be disciplined, and only bring back the items that do fit the metric, nothing else. How many items were you listing before you had to start sourcing for other places besides thrifts? So when I was new, I didn't know very much. So I went to the thrift maybe once a week, twice a week, and maybe I was listing 10 a day, whatever it was. As my listing goal became more aggressive, I had to add more stops at the thrift. And I think it was my wife's suggestion to go to the flea market. And I don't know whereabouts in the journey it was because we're talking over 10 years ago, and never in a million years did I ever think that I would accomplish what I accomplished on eBay. Never in a million years did I ever think I would be sitting here on YouTube talking about eBay, talking best practices, and like referring to what I was doing 10 years ago as an eBay seller. So like I didn't document stuff very well. And that's a question that I get often. I get often, what is your biggest regret when it comes to reselling? And I figured it out 2 weeks ago. Because 2 weeks ago, I was looking for a picture in my phone to use from a thumbnail, and it was a picture that I had from a long time ago. And the amount of stuff that kind of jogged memories and the amount of stuff that I forgot that I've done in reselling, cool stuff that I found, the stories behind it, and those photos reminded me. The only regret I have with reselling is I did not document it enough. And I think that if you are doing this, take a picture, take a screenshot, just have it, write some stuff down, document it. I did not do that enough, not enough. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be on the internet recalling 12 years ago what I was doing. So it's very blurry. Like my life, it was a complete blur back then. So I do remember the very first time that we did go to the flea market, and the very first vendor. So like at the flea market, every vendor gets like a square. I swear to you, I swear. The very first vendor, the very first square, right? This is the square. The vendor sitting right here. Here's the square. We're walking from this way. The first item on the corner of the first square, right here, the very first item, was a silver Nintendo GameCube for $10, complete. And I went home and I sold it on eBay for $60. The very first square, the very first vendor, literally the very first item on the corner of the very first vendor was a Nintendo GameCube that I made like $50 on. So I don't know at what part of the journey we went, but I do know it was at least a couple of years of only doing flea markets or only doing thrift stores. And then I started going to the flea market, and I ended up going to the flea market on Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. But I will say, like when I was doing 120 a day, the flea market was absolutely instrumental in me getting 120 pieces a day on average, because I've showed pictures in the group of like my old flea market hauls, and like I would come home with 1,000 pieces sometimes, with 500 pieces sometimes. So the flea market was very, very helpful to hit my sourcing goal of 120 a day. Can I tell you exactly when we went? No, but if I had to guess, it was probably 30 a day. But that's just a guess. That was a long time ago. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. Like I'm not gonna BS you guys and tell you like, oh, like if I don't know the answer, I don't know. I'll give you my best guess. Kaylin says, can you remove promoted listing percentage after you have set it and go in and change the percentage if we choose without ending the listing? You can. You can edit the promotion, or you can end the promotion and then start a new one. When we promote, doesn't the listing you promote show up on similar like items? It can. So there's a couple ways that promoted listings work. For promoted listings standard, it does give you better search placement. You'll be right at the top. They also put it in different places in search. You'll be at the very, very bottom of search. And then if you click on an item, like let's say a Nike shirt, it says right there, now it's at the top. It'll say, here's similar items. It's right underneath their description. Here's similar items. And then there's like 10 rows of promoted listings with like 20 items per row. So you do show up on similar items. Very good. Any tips on looking up items while out to thrift? Frequently, I'm coming across items that look interesting, but I can't figure out how to best look them up. So you can use the eBay app. However, I am not a big supporter or big fan of the eBay app. What I prefer to do is go to the browser on my phone. I go to ebay.com and it brings up eBay mobile. I scroll all the way to the bottom and there's a selection down there all the way at the bottom that says use classic site or desktop version. I click that, and then it gives me the desktop version right on my phone. And then I can search something, I can lock in sold. And if, as long as I keep that screen up, every search that I do from there will always be saved on the lock-in of the solds. And the reason why I don't like the mobile is because, for one, I'm old and like I didn't grow up with the mobile in my eBay career. So like that's probably one reason why, it's not my favorite, because I didn't grow up with it like a lot of you guys have. You guys have grown up with the app, so like it's kind of like a thing that's always been there. But the app does give different results than the computer does. So a lot of people, they search on their app and they go, wow, this is a great item. And then they get it home and do a computer search and it's different results. So for me, I use the phone on desktop classic site, so that way I get the same result on the phone and on the computer. That's what I do. That works for me. If you guys want to do something else, no problem. Hey Laura, how you doing? Taking notes today? Very good. Movie going says his answer on the title of the video is not putting the time in. We all have competition. We have to know more than them and work harder than them. Very good. Great questions. Great questions. Count of the Fifth said they received their 1099K and noticed that it is gross sales. Do I deduct the fees and shipping labels from this number? So I am not a tax professional. However, we do have an accountant in the group that goes over all of that stuff. The very first call that she did was a very basic introduction to bookkeeping and all things like this. She tells you where to find all of your numbers. Fantastic call, great call. So you are right. It is a gross figure, and you would have to deduct all of your expenses from that gross figure. Droopy says, do you ship all brands internationally, or do you pick and choose which ones can and can't be? I asked based on some companies not shipping themselves internationally, but maybe that applies to just new. So for me personally, I do not ship directly internationally. I use the eBay Global Shipping program. But you're right, there are some items that it is against policy to list them with international shipping as an option. And you will get a policy violation for brands like Levi's. Levi's does not want their items on eBay in brand new condition eligible for international shipping. Nike is another one that comes through a couple times a year and kind of swoops everybody out. Nike gives policy violations for brand new if it is eligible for international shipping, whether directly or through the eBay International Shipping Program. So those are the two most aggressive ones that I've seen when it does come to international shipping being eligible. Levi's brand new, Nike brand new, and this one is a sleeper one. I've seen people get the policy violation for Converse brand new. Converse is owned by Nike. So that's why they are just as protective on Converse brand new as they are on Nike brand new. So if you are going to do international shipping, then you either have to list those items as pre-owned, or you're going to have to make a separate business policy without eligible international shipping for Levi's, Nike, Converse, and those kinds of brands. So for me, I stopped listing items as brand new a long time ago. And I think listing them as pre-owned offers you a little bit more protection. And the price difference between pre-owned and new is 9 times out of 10 negligible. So for me, I just go pre-owned everything. Um, Perfectly Blessed says she's excited that she found the Chicago Bulls starter jacket. I saw that post today. That was a great one. That tag is a great tag. There was nothing wrong with it. And the good keyword for that one was the kangaroo pouch. So that one's going to sell for great money. So there's a couple starter jackets for basketball that like bring the most money. Chicago Bulls is one, and the Charlotte Hornets is another one. So you found the Bulls one. That's a good one. Gaston says, why don't you wear vintage? My friend, I got 4 shirts, and you can't get high on your own supply. So I made a commitment. I made a deal with myself that once I started doing this, I could have the best polo collection on the face of the earth. The best polo collection on the face of the earth. I can collect polo or I can collect dollar bills. And I chose to collect dollar bills. So it's very easy as a reseller to keep a lot of stuff. And I don't like clutter. You can ask Mel. She's been to my house. You can ask Isaiah. Shout out to Isaiah. Isaiah_TMN. He just opened up his YouTube. He's doing a great job. And a lot of you guys saw the podcast that we did when he was talking about it being a shoe seller. Mel, back from burnout, she visited my house from Australia. We don't have clutter, nothing. So I don't want clutter. Clutter is a distraction. I don't want to spend time on clutter. And I also don't want to rob my business of future potential earning. And I've had all the best polo. You name it, I've had it. I've had suicide skier. I've had it all. If you can sell a jacket for $500 and your cost of goods is $5, you've given yourself 100 more opportunities. And if you make $20 profit, you turn that $5 into a $500 jacket into 500 more opportunities. That's going to give you $20 profit. Now you've turned that $5 into $10,000 on the second generation of the flip. So $5 to a reseller in this scenario is worth $10,000. Do I really want a suicide ski jacket that bad where I'm going to rob my business of $10,000? And the answer is no. So whether it be a shirt, jacket, hat, it's all got to go. I made the deal with myself. I will collect dollar bills. I will not collect the inventory that I source. And it has made my life very easy. I have 4 t-shirts and I rock and roll with that. April said, can someone explain what a Vero is? Is it just a warning not to list them and or threat of losing your account? So Vero stands for verified rights owner. And Veros are usually for a policy violation, like we just outlined for international shipping on a handful of brands. But the most common Vero is going to be for a counterfeit item or trademark infringement. So if you put Velcro in the listing, you will get a Vero from Velcro USA, and that will be for trademark infringement. You will get a Vero for that. If you use Onesie, you will get a Vero. Onesie is owned by Gerber. If you list something that is counterfeit, you will potentially get a Vero. And we can say, hey, but all these other people are selling them. That's great. A lot of people speed, but not everybody gets caught. So we don't want to be on the side of the law where we got caught. And now these companies are going after people. They're suing people. And we have to be careful with this stuff. And one single item is not worth the entire earning potential of our eBay account. Our eBay account is worth thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of dollars over the lifetime of our eBay. It is not worth listing one item and potentially losing your account. So usually what happens is the first Vero that you get, they give you an email that says, hey, you probably didn't know. Don't worry about it. Just don't do it again. The second Vero that you usually get, and it depends on how close in succession they come, the second Vero that you get is more sternly worded. If you get another Vero after that, maybe they sit you down, give you a 3-day vacation. If you get another Vero, they give you a 7-day vacation, and then all the way up to a 30-day vacation, all the way up, maybe they skip them all, and then you just get a permanent suspension. So you have to be very, very careful when concerning Veros. So Vero is verified rights owner, and also for the compliance with international shipping, also for compliance of eBay policy, like, you know, makeup adapters and things like that. We have to be careful with that. We have to be careful about selling like used socks. Like we can't do that either. We have to be careful about not using words to fetishize our items. We have to be careful with that. We have to be careful with stuff that's been recalled, especially in the baby category or the toy category. Very, very careful on that. We have to be careful about certain skins or furs. We have to be careful about selling items from countries that we have an embargo with. So the other day, someone posted a purse that was made in Cuba. There's an embargo. So like that item, in eBay's opinion and the United States opinion, is not available for the marketplace. We can't sell ivory. So like we have to know all of these rules. If you want to win the game, you have to know the rules. And if you get Veros for certain things, if you get Veros too quickly together, they will sit you down, potentially permanently. So you have to be very careful. Noel, how you doing? Thanks for being in the chat. I appreciate it. Thank you. William says they've been sitting on some Viore men's medium shorts for over a month and they have a 200%, 250% sell through. You need to figure out why. You got to figure out why. The chat jumped on me. I got to catch up. Oh boy, I'm in trouble now. I lost the chat, guys. I lost the chat. I'm in trouble. Let me see if I could search Viore if it comes up. All right, I'm back. I'm back in action. We did it. How do you build confidence in your inventory when you are buying as a new seller without the actual data to know if you are hitting the metrics? Well, the data is right there. It's right there. It's in the actives, it's in the sold. The data's there. We have to trust in that data. We have to trust it. We have to trust it. Like men lie, women lie, numbers don't. We have to trust the data. We have to. Caitlin says, do you have anything in your personal collection that is worth big money, but you refuse to sell it? Nothing. Everything gets sold. Very good. Good question, guys. Should we use the word size in our clothing listings? My personal opinion, I don't think so. I think it messes it up when you put men's size large. I've run the experiment, and from the data that I saw, I think it's best to leave it out. What is the best way to list pre-owned clothing that measures smaller than the tag size if the tag is XL but measures closer to large? Do I list it as a large and explain the description? So in those instances, it is very difficult because there is customer confusion. So what I do is list it how it's tagged, provide photos of the measurement in the listing, put item specifics as it's tagged, put in the description as it's tagged. If you wish, you can put a little blurb that says, hey, this item runs a little bit smaller. Please double check measurements to ensure a desired fit. And that's the best that you could do. Oh, Mel's in the house. There you go. I was just talking about you coming over and visiting. Mel is here, back from burnout. She's great. She hosts the Australian call. That's going to be at 3:30 a.m. my time. So we'll wake up and we'll get it started for those guys. I appreciate all the folks from Australia. Mel taught me such great words. Righto. That's my favorite word that Mel taught me. Righto. Righto, tech. Or I like ute. Does anyone know what a ute is? UTE. Does anyone know what a ute is? I had no idea what it was. Robert says, I know you and others talk about average sale price, but why doesn't anyone talk about average order size? If you have a larger store, you can get multiple orders, which is a game changer. Absolutely, it is. But I think for most people, um, they don't have like multiple orders, multi-quantity, to, I guess, count that as part of their metric. But if you do have enough orders where it does move the needle and you want to keep track of average order size, absolutely. But I think for 99% of people, that doesn't apply to their business and their store, unfortunately. D. Bush said, did eBay ever reach out to you and acknowledge the good that you are doing for eBay resellers? So for 15 years, I was number one in every single category. Never heard anything from them. I was dominating in every single category, never heard nothing. They just emailed me last week and said, we saw your YouTube videos and would love to talk to you. I'm going to talk to them, but I have a bone to pick with them. I am going to tell them I crushed it for 15 years and now y'all want to talk to me just because I have a YouTube channel. I'm gonna give them a piece of my mind. I promise you on that. So yeah, apparently they value YouTube. But for 15 years, didn't hear a peep. But that doesn't matter. Like they have no obligation to reach out to me, nothing like that. But you know, as someone that has used the platform probably more than just about anybody on the face of the earth, who did it at the highest level, I would probably have some pretty valuable feedback on how eBay works and like what they could do better for the buyer, or, you know, how can we help you? How can you help us? But nope. Now that we're on YouTube, let's rock and roll. Did you ever set up at the flea market? I have not. Sweet girl said the advice you gave Mel back from burnout about having a virus is exactly what she needed to hear. Appreciate the straightforwardness. That's the only way to do it. We cannot sugarcoat. We gotta keep it real. Would you apply the same parking lot acceptable margin for replenishable goods? Absolutely, because it's about where you have the best earning potential, and you always have to let that kind of be the North Star when you are um, making all of your decisions. You have to let best earning potential, whether it's road number one, road number two, and that needs to determine every single decision inside of your business. Eduardo says, would you say it's okay to enter redundant words in the title to help search your items? Having the same word 2 or 3 times in the title does not help. Mom teacher says, I'm nervous about starting eBay because it seems like there are a lot of opportunities to get in trouble. Do you have any tips? Yeah. I mean, you can not start eBay and worry about the troubles, or you can start eBay and then the troubles may never come. Like there's only one way to find out. I've been selling on eBay for over 15 years. Michelle is a moderator in the chat. She's been on there for 20 years. Noelle is a moderator in the chat. She's been on there for 20 years. There are plenty of people that if you do the right thing, you will be on eBay forever. If you start breaking rules, if you start doing a bunch of stuff, and then absolutely you should be scared. Absolutely, you should be scared. But if you are doing the correct thing, there's nothing to worry about. Pharaoh Flipper says, when you were buying 500 to 1,000 pieces at the thrift, was that under different parameters, or were those still buy for 5, sell for 25? No, my average sale price or my average buy cost at the thrift was between 7 and 8. And then my average selling price was $30 plus shipping. So after fees, I was netting $20. That was my metrics over there. And that was at 120 items a day. When I moved to 250 items a day, my cost of goods dropped from between 7 and 8, it dropped to 4, and my average sale price dropped from 30 to 25. So even though the average sale price dropped, my average cost of goods dropped. So the scale just slid like this. And the reason why the average sale price dropped is because I had to extend the metric for items that I was willing to accept in my store, because I went from 120 a day to 250 a day. I had went to the end of the earth and exhausted all the possibility of like those great items that are 30 plus shipping, and I had to like decrease my allowable acceptability for items, and then my average sale price dropped and my sell through went from 30 days to 90 days. But I think if you're at 30 to 50 items a day, there should be no compromise at all in the quality of the product that you're listing in your store. I think after 50 items, it does get difficult. And that's why I had to do 55 thrift stores a week, 3 times a week at the flea market. 2 of those times at the flea market, Saturday and Sunday, I would do 2 flea markets on those days. So Saturday, I would go to mine, and then I would go to a Miami flea market. Sunday, I would do mine and go to a West Palm Beach flea market. So after 50 a day, it does get difficult to maintain, a very, very high quality. But I was able to do it for 120 a day. But after that, I had to concede in the sales price and I had to concede in the sell through. Figgy says, for your flea market hauls, will you ever consider doing a dedicated series on all the categories in the group? Like do one for women's clothes, one for toys, one for ephemera, one for video games? Probably not, because I don't sell that stuff. So like after I get it, what am I going to do with it? Like throw it in the garbage? So for all the clothing that I do get, even though I've scaled back eBay and don't list clothing anymore, I just wholesale that stuff out. And I only do clothing is because, the very first rule that I ever said, and Hanley reminded me of this yesterday, was on the very first podcast. The very first rule that I said was find what's in your area and find where you have an advantage. And in my area, clothing is very abundant. And due to the knowledge that I was able to acquire, I had the advantage. So I've never gone into a thrift store here, never, not one time, and seen a video game. Never. My thrift stores do not have video games. They send them all to the corporate and they probably get listed online. Never seen them. I've never seen ephemera over there. I've never seen any of that stuff. I've seen a little bit of toys, but they're junk toys. Now at the flea market, do they have that stuff? Sure, but I never got into it because I didn't have the advantage. The advantage at my flea market and my thrifts is clothing is very, very abundant. So that's why I chose that path and that's why I focused on it. Sanif says, do you source off eBay? I do not, but I showed in the group I don't know, tons of times of how you can do it. And there's been people that have, taken the ball from that. And I know Angela, right after the call that I showed how to source on eBay, she bought 88 items. So like there are tons and tons and tons of opportunities on eBay. And we have Jack in the group. He hosts the Friday call, which is the Amazon call. He sources off of eBay and he does $1 million a year in sales on Amazon from his house. He doesn't even leave his house. He does not source anywhere else outside of eBay. So like there are humongous opportunities on eBay if you know what you're doing. Very good. Thank you, everybody. William says, so Nike pre-owned clothes are okay to list. Nike is not as protective on pre-owned as they are on brand new. And we are speaking in terms of the international shipping policy violation. Very good. Gansky says she saw me on the Jewelry Reseller podcast. Okay, shout out to Desiree. Desiree is great. You can find her on Instagram on Good, Great, Fabulous. Great name. And she always does news of the week on the YouTube social media call in the group. And she asked if I would do the podcast with her. I said absolutely. So I did the podcast with her, and I think everybody should check it out because she comes at it with a different perspective. And Desiree, she has a history working news. She worked in the newsroom. She was a news reporter. So her questions are great. A lot of her questions are questions that I've never even been asked before. So I'm sure if you type in my name and you type in Jewelry Reseller Podcast, it'll come up. I think everybody should watch that because it's a lot. It's a very different approach with very different questions, and I think it is a very, very unique one-on-one conversation that I think can provide value and help a lot of people. So definitely check out Desiree on Instagram. She's Good, Great, Fabulous. And then on YouTube, I believe she has the same name, but she has the Jewelry Podcast, which is its own channel. If you type in my name and the Jewelry Reseller Podcast, that'll come up. And I know it's a jewelry reseller podcast, but like we don't spend a lot of time talking about jewelry specifically. It's great questions that prompted great answers that I think will help a lot of people. And disregard the jewelry part. It's just what her niche is, but I think that conversation would be very helpful. Very good. Thank you, everybody. Brandy says, can someone put Isaiah's link? I think it's Isaiah_TMN. And if you go back to the podcast I did with him about 2 or 3 weeks ago, it's linked over there. He needs an easier name. Talk to him. I've been trying to tell him all these years. I've been trying to tell him. All right, very good. I think we almost got everybody. Thoughts on people, the thousands of people listing, taking photos close to everything the exact way as you did and expect great results. It's not going to work because in order to get these results, you have to do every single thing that I do, and they don't do it. Most of them forget to do one thing, and it's the same thing every single time. They copy everything except one thing, and that one thing messes up their entire store, and they can't ever figure it out. So even if they are able to copy that, you will never get these results unless you have this amount of work ethic. So a lot of things work for me because I had the scale. And if you don't have the scale, it's not going to work for you. So you could copy whatever you want. And the people that are copying, they are doing themselves a disservice. Because if I go out there and get hit by a bus, who are they going to copy from after that? Because they are learning my store. They're not learning eBay. So we have to make sure, are we learning someone else's store or are we learning how eBay works? And if I go out there and get hit by a bus, do you go out of business now because all you've done is copy? When I stop selling clothing on eBay, do you go out of business because all you did was copy? Did you just learn how to copy a listing or did you learn how eBay works? And every single time they make one mistake, they all make the same mistake and it totally screws up their sell through every single time. And I'll get messages after this. What one mistake? I'm asking for a friend. It's not because of me. I answer every question except that one. Y'all need to figure out the mistake you're making by yourself. Oh, stock market says he's heard ute mean youth. That's Jamaican style. I'm talking Australian style. Ute. Ute is a pickup truck. It's a pickup truck. But we call them trucks. So Patriot says, what is the formula you talked about last week to know how many items to list per day to sell X amount based on current solds versus current store inventory? So this is just theoretical, and this is just an exercise that is not guaranteed. So if you have 100 items in your store, and I'm just using 100 for a small number, a round number, and you sell 5 a day, for every new 100 items in your store, you should add an additional 5 sales per day, so long as everything stays exactly the same when it does come to your product mix, your prices, your selection, all of that other stuff. So if you have a 300 item store, you should sell 15 items. So what you have to do is you have to determine your store size, how many items you sell on average, and then figure out for how many items you have X, that gives you X amount of sales. So we'll use more realistic numbers. And let's say you have 2,712 items. You have 2,712 items and you sell 5 items a day. 2,712 divided by 5, that gives us 542. So for every new 542 items that you introduce to your store, that will give you an additional sale. So for this item to move, for this store to move from 5 items a day to 6 items a day, they would need 2,712 plus 542. So this store would need 3,254 items to move from 5 items a day to 6 items a day. And again, that is theoretical. That is assuming all things considered remain exactly the same. That is considering like you don't add 400 iPhones. That's going to skew it. That's going to mess with the data. This is all considering that everything stays exactly the same, and it's just theoretical. It's not promised. Very good. All right. I think I got just about everybody. I think I got just about everybody. I think we beat the chat. I think we beat the chat. All right, we beat the chat. Chat's over. We got them. All right, so I guess to answer the question is the single only reason why resellers fail, and we beat the chat is over. The single reason why resellers fail is they do not take time to get better. That's the reason. What works today is not going to work tomorrow. eBay changes, eBay switches, updates come. We have to get better. We have to get better stock. We have to get better at our numbers. We have to get better at the way that eBay wants us to do it. We do not take enough time to seek the knowledge, and we get stuck, we get stagnant, we rest on our laurels, and the world passes us by. That is the single reason why resellers fail. The list it and forget it forever model does not work. We have to get better. We have to know our keywords. We have to keep increasing our value on the eBay marketplace. We cannot find something that works and expect that to work forever. We cannot. Because 7 years ago, a Tommy Hilfiger spell out was worth $250 every single time. If you are still sourcing those, if you are still listing those for $250, the world has passed you by and you will go out of business. So it changes, trends change, buyers change, the economy changes, the dollar changes, eBay changes, everything changes. And if you are not on your grind in the mentality of, I need to get better, the world will pass you by. The world will pass you by. And if you are doing the same as you did in the year 2020, if you are selling 100,000 in 2020 and you are selling 100,000 in 2024, tell me that the world didn't pass you by. And absolutely it did. So we have to get better if we expect to continue to stay in business. If we do not get better, the results are going to diminish and go to zero. So I appreciate everybody for hanging in here. We have to take time to seek the knowledge. Just like we take time to do everything else, we have to set aside dedicated time to learn and seek the knowledge. So I appreciate everybody for hanging out. I appreciate you jumping in with us tonight on this Wednesday night. I appreciate you spending Valentine's Day with us, with me, with my wife and I. Thank you to Michelle. Thank you to Noel. Thank you to everybody who chimed in. As always, be great. Thank you.